The sun beat down upon the dusty town of Dry Creek, where the wind carried whispers of old grudges and long-forgotten dreams. Horses clopped along Main Street, their riders shaded by wide-brimmed hats. At the edge of town, the sprawling Holloway Ranch stretched across the plains like an empire, its fences drawn tight against both cattle thieves and poverty alike. For most women, Dry Creek was a place to endure, not to flourish. For Clara Bennett, it was the only place left. Clara had come west with her husband, James, chasing the promise of fertile land. But the land was cruel, and so was fate. James had been thrown from a wild Mustang 2 years back. The accident broke his neck, leaving Clara widowed at 24 with nothing but her iron will and a heart that had forgotten how to hope. She'd taken odd jobs since, scrubbing floors, mending dresses, and sometimes cooking for saloons when the regular hands drank themselves sick. Still, the debt stacked higher than her meager pay. And though her brown eyes still burned with quiet fire, the townsfolk whispered, "Poor Widow Bennett," as though sorrow were her surname. That morning, Clara received word. Holloway Ranch was hiring a cook. The rancher, Matthew Holloway, was not a man accustomed to want. The Holloway brand marked half the cattle across the territory, and his herd stretched further than the horizon. Widowed himself for 5 years, Matthew carried his wealth like a shield and his loneliness like a chain. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a streak of silver in his black hair that made him seem older than his 35 years. Rumors swirled. Some said he'd shot a man in Dodge, others that his wife's death had hollowed him into stone. What was certain was this. He had a daughter, Lily, barely 7, and no woman in the big ranch house to cook, tend, or love her the way a mother should. So when Clara arrived at the Holloway porch that day, dressed in a faded calico dress and holding her breath against rejection, Matthew looked at her with a gaze that saw both her scars and her strength. "You cook?" he asked simply. "I do," Clara replied, straightening her back though her hands trembled. "And I keep a clean house." Something unreadable passed over Matthew's face. He nodded once. "You'll start tonight. New beginnings." The Holloway Ranch house was larger than any building Clara had ever stepped inside. Its polished wood floors gleamed, its windows stretched wide to catch the sunsets. But its grandeur felt empty, like a church after the congregation had gone home. Clara cooked her first supper: roast beef, beans, and biscuits. The ranch hands devoured it with grins of approval. Matthew said little, but he noticed the steadiness in her work, the way she carried herself with quiet dignity. After supper, Clara felt a small tug at her skirt. Lily Holloway stood there, her blonde curls framing wide blue eyes. "Will you tuck me in?" she asked softly as though fearing the answer. Clara's heart lurched. She hadn't expected tenderness here, least of all from a child not her own. For a moment, memories of James filled her. The children they never had, the lullabies never sung. She knelt and brushed a strand of hair from Lily's cheek. "Yes, darlin'. I will." From the doorway, Matthew watched. His hardened expression cracked just enough to let something fragile show through. Hardship and danger. Life at Holloway Ranch was steady but far from safe. Rustlers prowled the borders. Rival ranchers, jealous of Holloway's wealth, schemed. And the town itself held men who saw Clara as prey rather than a woman rebuilding her life. One night, riding back from town after fetching supplies, Clara was cornered by Jed Callahan, a drunken outlaw who'd once tried courting her before James's death. "Well now," Jed sneered, reeking of whiskey, "if it ain't the Widow Bennett. Heard you're playin' house for Holloway." "That's so. How much he payin' for your company?" Clara's stomach knotted, but her chin lifted. "Step aside, Jed." He laughed, stepping closer. "Or what? Gonna whack me with your flour sack?" A shadow moved, silent but deadly. Then, steel pressed against Jed's throat. "Matthew Holloway." "Best take your hands off my cook, Jed," Matthew growled, his revolver gleaming in the moonlight. Jed's smirk faltered. He slunk back, muttering curses, but Clara saw fear in his retreat. Matthew holstered his gun, turning to her. You shouldn't ride alone at night. And I shouldn't need a man to save me, Clara snapped, more from trembling than defiance. Matthew studied her, then nodded once. Fair enough. But you've got one all the same. For the first time in years, Clara felt what it was to be protected. Not owned. Not pitted. Protected. The breaking point. Weeks bled into months. Clara's presence warmed the ranch house. She mended curtains, baked pies, and filled Holloway's halls with the quiet music of her humming. Lily adored her, trailing her like a shadow. At night the child would whisper, "You smell like Mama used to," before sleep carried her away. But with closeness came danger. Whispers in town said Holloway had taken up with the widow Bennett. That she was after his fortune. That she wasn't fit to raise his girl. Clara overheard two ranch hands muttering one afternoon. She'll ruin him. Just another pretty face looking to snare a rich man. The words stung worse than Jed's threats. That evening, Clara confronted Matthew in the kitchen. I can't stay, she said, her voice shaking. The talk. It'll ruin your name. Lily deserves better. Matthew's jaw clenched. Let him talk. You don't understand, Clara pressed. I've lived with gossip tearing me apart since James died. I won't see Lily hurt the same way. For a long moment, Matthew said nothing. Then with quiet intensity, he stepped closer. You think I hired you for your biscuits? His voice dropped. Clara, since the day you walked through that door, this house has felt alive again. Lily smiles because of you. And me. His voice broke the first crack in the armor. I remember what it means to breathe. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Matthew. But before she could answer, a rider thundered up to the ranch, shouting, Rustlers! They've cut the north fence. Trial by fire. The night exploded in gunfire. Ranch hands mounted their horses, rifles in hand. Matthew led them, his face grim. Clara wanted to run inside, to shield Lily. But something deeper stirred. Courage she thought long buried. She grabbed the shotgun from the wall and stood at the porch, guarding the child as shadows danced across the fields. The rustlers came close. Too close. A man raised his gun at the house, at Lily's window. Clara fired first. The outlaw fell, his body thudding against the earth. When the smoke cleared, the fence lay trampled but the herd was safe. Holloway men dragged away two wounded rustlers. The rest had fled. Matthew dismounted, sweat and blood streaking his shirt. His eyes found Clara, still clutching the shotgun with shaking hands. You held your ground, he said softly. Clara swallowed. I had someone worth protectin'. Something passed between them then, stronger than fear, deeper than gratitude. It was love, raw and undeniable. Redemption and love. The following morning, the ranch was quiet again. Clara sat on the porch steps, watching the sunrise. Matthew came beside her, silent at first. I don't care what the town says, he murmured. I don't care if every rancher from here to Kansas spits my name. You and Lily, you're my home now, Clara.